Throughout my life, every man around me has been infatuated with Esther Sinclair. Whether it was the arrogant and willful young master, or the well-mannered senior. Later, a car accident left the young master blind and the senior disabled. Esther ran away, asking me to take care of them. They believed I had driven Esther away and made life difficult for me. I endured their mistreatment silently for the substantial caregiver's salary. The day I achieved financial freedom, I flipped over the dining table. "I'm done putting up with your rubbish. I quit." The blind young master suddenly opened his eyes and stared at me intently. The disabled senior swiftly moved to block the door. Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. With a loud crash, the bowl of soup shattered on the floor. The soup was meant to hit me, but the young master's aim was poor due to his blindness. "Where's Esther?" "Esther promised she'd visit me today." Nathan Rowe kept his eyes closed, his long eyelashes casting shadows on his sharp, handsome features that remained expressionless. I quickly knelt down to pick up the broken pieces, thinking that Esther must be in America by now. After learning about Nathan and Adrian's car racing accident that left them injured, Esther had fled abroad. Esther said she's dealing with some serious problems. "But she'll come to see you once everything's sorted," I tried to reassure him. "That's not true. Esther promised she'd overcome any difficulty to come see me." "It's you, isn't it? You drove her away." Nathan kept his eyes shut, unable to see anything, only tracking my location by sound. "Don't move. There are ceramic shards everywhere," I shouted to stop him. His bare feet stepped on the ceramic shards, but he seemed oblivious to the pain. His eyebrows furrowed as he followed my voice. When Nathan found me, he groped until he grabbed my hair, forcing me to look up at him, his voice turning venomous. "It's because of you. Because you fancy me." She got jealous and left. The pain from my scalp made me want to resist, but Nathan's words silenced me. Yes, I did have feelings for Nathan. But Esther hadn't left because of jealousy. She'd left firstly fearing revenge from the Rowe family, and secondly because both Rowe brothers were now disabled. They'd become a burden to her current lifestyle. But I couldn't tell Nathan any of this. When Esther left, she'd instructed me that if I took care of them and kept speaking well of her, she'd send me £10,000 each month. And she told me not to contact her unless necessary. I was just a university student, and I needed that £10,000 to help ease my poor family's burden. Nathan kept demanding to know if I'd driven Esther away. He insisted I call her, apologize, and beg her to come back. I remained silent. My silence enraged Nathan, and he began shouting abuse at me. "Are you mute? Call Esther right now. Do you think I'd ever fancy you just because Esther isn't here?" Nathan's tone was cruel as he continued to blame me, convinced I was the reason Esther had left. When Nathan felt a cold tear land on his skin, he finally fell silent. "My father is the chauffeur for the Sinclair family. Since childhood, I've known that I could never measure up to Esther Sinclair. I was merely her shadow. Dad always said we needed to keep Esther happy, to take good care of her. By staying in Esther's good graces, I managed to attend the same international high school as her. That's where we met Nathan Rowe. The international high school was full of wealthy students. Who wouldn't associate with scholarship students like me? But their followers, when frustrated, would often take their anger out on us. Esther was mischievous and enviably beautiful. Since they couldn't touch her, they'd target me instead. Once, while I was doing Esther's cleaning duty, they cornered me in the school's back garden. They mocked me for being Esther's lapdog, saying I had no dignity, doing anything for money. I stood there silently, clutching my broom and keeping my head down. I'd always been like this, quiet and reserved. Even Dad would say how much better it would be if I could be lively like Esther. That being a bit naughty wouldn't hurt. But Dad never realized I couldn't afford to be lively or naughty. As they grew bored with my silence, they started pushing me around. That's when a boy suddenly emerged from behind a thick oak tree, his school uniform hanging loosely off one shoulder. "Bloody hell, can't a bloke get some sleep? All this chattering girls are such a pain," he said, furrowing his brows and shooing them away. That boy was Nathan Rowe. He appeared like the prince from my fantasies, swooping in to rescue poor, insignificant me. I fell for him. Later, he developed feelings for Esther, asking me to deliver gifts to her. Sometimes he'd bring me small treats from the local bakery. These tiny acts of kindness burned like an eternal flame, fueling my burning love. I kept my feelings well hidden. No one ever knew about my crush on Nathan. This silent love continued through all 3 years of high school and into university. I remained quiet, pouring my thoughts into a private Twitter account. I never dared to name him directly, referring to him only as my light. But Esther found it. She ran to Nathan, laughing. "Hey, I'll play matchmaker. My best friend fancies you, you two should date." I remember following behind Esther, desperately trying to stop her. Nathan's reaction was even more dramatic than mine. He loudly protested, "You must be joking. I'm not even interested in someone like you, let alone her. She's so forgettable you'd lose her in a crowd." Esther chased after him playfully, and Nathan dodged away, both of them laughing and fooling around. Only I stood there, frozen and lost. I couldn't even lift my head, terrified they might notice me. I clutched at my uniform, unable to leave. As long as my father remained the Sinclair chauffeur, I had to stay in Esther's good graces. They never mentioned the incident again. I became even quieter, following in Esther's wake. I'd watch Nathan playfully tug at Esther's hair, and she'd turn to swat at him. He never got angry, just grinned that brilliant smile of his. Back then, touching my short hair, I'd wished it was longer. Now my hair has grown out, but it only gives Nathan more ammunition to mock me. He's gentle with Esther, but has no such patience for me. After cleaning up the broken pieces from the floor, I saw him sitting on the carpet, his bare feet still bleeding. He didn't seem to feel any pain, just sat there with his eyes closed, lost in thought. I went downstairs to get the first aid kit. When I reached the ground floor, Adrian Rowe was sitting in his wheelchair, reading a financial magazine. Upon noticing my presence, he looked up and asked with apparent concern, "Are you all right, Ginny? Nathan has been quite difficult since losing his sight. I'm sorry for his behavior. I'll have a word with him." Liar. Nathan had been shouting at me for nearly 10 minutes. And Adrian, who was just downstairs, hadn't intervened at all. He just wanted me to be his brother's emotional punching bag. I'd been taking care of the Rowe brothers for almost a month now. Nathan was unpredictable and difficult to please. But Adrian always maintained his polite facade, appearing gentle and refined. With his wire-rimmed glasses and that small beauty mark at the corner of his eye, which added to his seemingly gentle demeanor, he always wore a faint smile. Only I knew that the smile never reached his eyes, and his gentleness was merely a facade. He looked down on me. People of their social class always despised girls like me, who they saw as gold diggers without dignity. He had been a distinguished graduate from my prestigious university. He'd once returned to give a lecture and had seen me delivering parcels to Esther. It was raining that day, and the path was slippery. I was carrying 7 or 8 heavy parcels, unable to hold an umbrella as my raincoat was being used to protect the packages. While climbing the steps, I slipped and fell, right in front of Adrian, who had just finished his lecture. Adrian had been standing there tall and proud, surrounded by admiring students asking him questions. When he saw me fall, he came over, gently helped me up, and gathered all the scattered parcels back into my arms. At that moment, I thought what a kind senior he was. Until I started caring for him when I was pushing his wheelchair in the park. He mentioned the sun was uncomfortable on his legs, so I took off my jacket to cover them, telling him I'd quickly pop over to buy a new blanket. When I returned, my jacket was gone. Adrian noticed my confused look and explained in his gentle tone. A child saw me in the wheelchair and deliberately took the jacket away. I tried to comfort him, saying, "What a naughty child." But when I was pushing him back, I spotted that familiar navy blue color in a nearby bin, the same as my jacket. Later, I grabbed one of the children playing nearby and asked, "Did you see who threw this blue jacket in the bin?" Yes, it was the big brother in the wheelchair. That's when I realized Adrian hated and looked down on me so much that he found even my belongings disgusting. I retrieved my jacket from the bin. It had cost me 120 pounds and was fairly new. I took it home to wash, planning to wear it again when I wouldn't have to see Adrian. I can't afford to lose this job. Besides the £10,000 monthly salary from Esther Sinclair, the Rowe brothers pay me £50,000 a month because they see me as honest and hardworking. It's a lot of money, and Dad won't have to worry about Mum's dialysis anymore. When you take someone's money, you must do the job well. I always remember this principle. So when Nathan keeps asking about Esther, I always check with her first. Esther impatiently replies to my WhatsApp message. Please, I've just started dating this blonde rugby team captain. I don't have time to comfort him. Just tell him I'm busy with my studies. I have no choice but to tell Nathan that Esther is studying hard abroad. Nathan closes his eyes, his expression unreadable as he smirks. Esther used to sleep through all her classes at International High School, and her university place was bought. How could she possibly be studying hard abroad with no time for me? At my wit's end, I ask Esther to send a voice message. Nathan, you big fool, of course I'm studying hard. I'll come to see you when I return. Wait for me. Esther's playful voice comes through the phone. Nathan saves it to his mobile and keeps listening to it. I knew Esther would come to see me. I'll wait for her, Nathan says, lying on his bed. I'm not sure if he's trying to convince me or himself, but his voice is firm and unwavering. He holds his phone, playing the voice message over and over. When I close the door, he complains that I'm too loud and disturbing him from listening to Esther's message. Does he really love her that much? I remember clearly. On Esther's birthday, Nathan asked me to deliver a diamond necklace to her. He carelessly tossed me £200 for the errand. I know that in Nathan's eyes, that's all I'm worth. As for me, no one has ever remembered my birthday. When I turned 18, I was in my final year. Nathan took Esther out for sushi, while I sat alone in the classroom doing their homework for the next day. There was so much homework in the final year. I stayed late into the night. The clear moonlight filtered through the curtains, falling on the ivy plant on the windowsill. I clasped my hands together and wished the ivy plant a happy birthday. Nathan is a good person. Because of him, I've never been bullied again. Esther is a good person. Without her, I wouldn't have gotten into international high school for a proper education. I'm grateful to them both. So, jealousy and envy only make people ugly, and I can't accept an ugly version of myself. That's why I no longer feel hurt when I'm ignored or overlooked countless times. The moon stays in the sky, and I've never thought about reaching for it. Even if the moonlight shines on me for a moment, I know it's not my moon to keep. I wish Esther would pay more attention to Nathan. He seems to be getting more and more gloomy these days. That carefree young lad who used to wear his school uniform loosely, with one shoulder exposed, seems to have vanished completely. However, Esther never messaged him again after that. I reached out to Esther, warning her that Nathan would become suspicious if she didn't message him. Esther replied to me, "Don't tell me anything about Nathan anymore. He's blind now, what future could he possibly have? I'm pursuing a British aristocrat now." I felt heartbroken. I carefully deleted all my WhatsApp chat history with Esther. 2 months after Nathan lost his sight, Esther gave up on him. Nathan seemed to understand something was wrong. He stopped asking me about Esther and smashed his phone to pieces. He asked me, "Esther won't come back, will she? She never really liked me, and now that I'm blind, she definitely won't come." I replied firmly, "Nathan, don't overthink it. Esther's just very busy. She mentioned she'd come back to visit you during the holiday break. And she wants you to take care of yourself." Nathan let out a cold laugh, his face expressionless. After a while, his thin lips parted. "Liar. My brother has seen her Instagram. She's already posted photos with another man," Nathan said coldly. "Both my brother and I have been abandoned by her." As he said this, his face showed a mix of complex emotions: anger, hatred, confusion, and sadness. He looked like a wounded animal, curled up on the large bed, burying his face in the pillow. I told more lies, saying that man was just Esther's friend, that Esther said not to worry. I told many lies, using my honest-sounding voice to deceive Nathan firmly. But Nathan never responded to my words. When I finally ran out of things to say, he only replied with 2 words. "Get out." I walked out, carefully closing the door behind me. As I descended the wooden stairs, I saw Adrian reading a book. He looked up when he saw me and asked, "He's in a terrible mood, isn't he?" I nodded, but Adrian showed no sympathy for his brother. Instead, he displayed a slight smile. I knew this day would come. At least he wasn't in too deep. I can't believe he actually fell for someone like Esther, such a player. Adrian's tone turned harsh when speaking about Esther. I quickly defended her. She's not a player, she really is busy with something. I insisted repeatedly, but Adrian just shrugged. He pointed to his legs. I was planning to pursue Esther, to make her confess to me. That way, Nathan would have woken up. But I never expected Esther to be so ambitious, making us brothers compete. She only wanted the winner in the end. And look what it cost us, my legs and his eyes. What a losing deal. Adrian curved his lips into a smile, but his tone revealed coldness and subtle anger. It seemed like he was planning to make Esther pay when she returned. I thought about secretly warning Esther to be careful of Adrian. After discussing Esther, Adrian leaned back in his wheelchair, tilting his head as he looked at me. His eyes behind the thin-framed glasses narrowed slightly, concealing an odd gleam. "Ginny won't become a bad girl, will you? My foolish brother can't take any more disappointment," he said in a soft, deep voice, lazily placing his book on his lap. His dark eyes fixed steadily on me. Like being watched by a snake, I felt a chill run down my spine. Being naturally tongue-tied, I didn't know how to respond. I shook my head. The summer rain came suddenly and violently. Adrian hated rain, so he would go to bed early on rainy days. Usually around 9 o'clock, I would carry him to bed. Because his legs still had no strength, he couldn't get into bed by himself. At first, I would half drag, half carry him up there. Although I was quite strong from years of doing housework, carrying a 6-foot-tall grown man still required technique. I had Adrian rest his chin on my shoulder. His sharp chin dug into my shoulder painfully. As I wrapped my arms around him, our bodies pressed tightly together. Then, gathering all my strength, I would lift him and place him as gently as possible onto the bed. Adrian didn't like this at first, but it was the only way I could get him to bed. The first time, he leaned against the headboard, his eyes calm and expressionless, unable to maintain his usual gentle smile. "I'm sorry," I apologized. "I know you don't like this either, but there's no choice. Unless you prefer a male nurse to carry you?" "That won't be necessary," he said coldly. That night, he was angry and punished me by making me wash the carpet on the floor. I spent the whole evening doing it. I learned my lesson after that and tried to keep him happy after carrying him. For instance, since he liked to read before bed, I would carefully place a pillow behind his back. If he coughed even once, I would immediately bring him water, which would improve his mood slightly. Once, he frowned deeply, pressing his thin lips together in silence. Adrian was actually quite proud, and I instantly understood his intention. I quickly fetched a small container from the bathroom and offered it to him, saying softly, "I'll empty it right away." But he suddenly became angry, turning his head away as his face flushed red then pale, his tone quite harsh. "What are you talking about? Carry me to the bathroom." I was confused. I thought he didn't like being carried, so I tried to minimize it when possible. But as my employer, I would follow his wishes. I put the container back and carried him to the bathroom. After he finished, I emptied the contents into the smart toilet. I thought being so considerate would prevent him from getting angry. But Adrian was even more upset when he got back to bed. He said sarcastically, "You won't get anything extra from me. I'll only give you your regular payment." "Oh." "I wasn't hoping for a bonus," I replied. Today it was raining again, and as usual, I carried Adrian to bed. Adrian went to sleep early, but Nathan typically stayed up late. After taking care of Adrian, I went to check the other room and was suddenly alarmed. Nathan was gone. He had just been downstairs listening to rock music. How could a grown person simply vanish? Looking at the wide-open front door, the raindrops fell like silver threads, their pounding sounds seeming to strike directly at my heart, filling me with fear and panic. I calmed myself down and followed the open door to search for Nathan, who had left the mansion. I took a black umbrella and put on my raincoat, carefully closing the mansion's front door as I left. It was dark outside. The Rowe family mansion was located in the suburbs, surrounded by nothing but untamed woods. Fortunately, there were street lamps along the path leading to the mansion, which remained bright despite the heavy rain. Following the street lamps, I found Nathan standing by the roadside. He hadn't gone far, being blind. He could only walk guided by his sense of light and memory. Perhaps he hadn't intended to escape, he was just in a bad mood. Especially since losing his sight, his hearing had become particularly sensitive, and the torrential rain outside the window made him agitated. He stood there under the street lamp, the orange glow falling upon him as the rain soaked through his clothes. He looked dejected and miserable. I walked beside him, stood on tiptoes to hold the umbrella over him, and looked up at the young man who appeared as downcast as a lost puppy. His fringe was plastered to his fair forehead, and raindrops clung to his eyelashes. His lips curved downward as droplets slid along his tense jawline, making it look as though he was crying. "You're not Esther. She'll never come looking for me again because I'm blind," he said in a hoarse voice. I couldn't let it go. I called Esther, and I heard a man's heavy breathing on her end. I always thought we liked each other. Even when I was racing with my brother, I thought she was just teasing me. His voice grew quieter, almost swallowed by the heavy rain. Esther should be doing her morning exercises right now. Given the time difference abroad, I tried to comfort him. Nathan laughed, but the corners of his mouth turned down sharply. He acted as if he'd heard a joke, his face twisted with cold mockery. "You're even more naive than I am." I urged him to return, saying his brother would surely scold me, maybe even dock my wages. I handed him the umbrella to hold and offered to guide him back. Carefully, I held onto the edge of his coat to lead him home. I advised him, "When we get back, take a hot shower. Then sit down and I'll dry your hair properly before you go to bed. That way, you won't get a headache." After a moment of silence, he said, "Do you know what I just remembered?" I remembered the sports day in sixth form. When I fell during the long-distance race, both you and Esther came towards me. Esther asked how I could win now, while you asked if I was hurt. I remembered how I had anxiously wanted to ask if he needed to go to the nurse's office. But Nathan had stood up, gritting his teeth as he smiled at Esther. "I'll win first place for you, even after falling." I had swallowed my words then, slowly lowering my outstretched hands. After Nathan finished reminiscing about the past, I remained silent. We shared a tacit silence, neither knowing what the other was thinking. By the time we reached the mansion, the rain had stopped. After that rainy night, Adrian seemed unaware that his precious younger brother had run away from home late at night. Both Nathan and I tacitly chose to keep it secret. I mainly feared having my pay docked because I desperately needed the money. I chose to study vegetable science, aiming to join the Royal Agricultural Research Institute. This has been my dream since I was little, as I've always loved farming. It might be a modest profession in terms of income, so I needed to save money to pursue my future in research. Just thinking about what I love made me happy. While pushing Adrian's wheelchair around the mansion garden, I thought about how good the soil was here. It would be perfect for growing potatoes. And I could write a paper about potato tissue culture. I was so absorbed in thoughts about potatoes that I didn't hear Adrian calling me several times. Noticing my distraction, Adrian narrowed his eyes and asked, "What are you thinking about?" "Coming back to reality," I answered honestly. "Thinking about how to write my thesis." Adrian seemed interested. Although we attended the same university, he studied finance. He appeared curious about what subject a poor student like me would choose. Perhaps popular courses like computer science or high-paying finance. "Vegetable science," I replied honestly to Adrian. Visibly, Adrian's gentle facade crumbled, as he suddenly clutched his stomach with laughter. His clear laughter rang out, his eyes crinkling with uncontrollable mirth, golden specks dancing in the sunlight. Seeing him so amused, I shyly said, "I just love the subject. I hope to contribute to the country by researching ways to increase vegetable yields. That's what my politics teacher taught us in school." I earnestly explained my ambition. Adrian, still chuckling and rubbing his stomach, said, I never expected international high school would have such a little bookworm. What bookworm? How could these capitalists understand the grand aspirations of ordinary people? I pouted, not wanting to discuss it with Adrian. Despite his name meaning sparse, he couldn't appreciate the joy of growing vegetables. Adrian's laughter was so loud it seemed to disturb Nathan upstairs. Nathan fumbled to open the window and shouted down, guided by the sound. "Ginny, come upstairs. I want you to read me a story." Since that rainy night, Nathan had been like this. Whenever I was taking care of Adrian, Nathan would interrupt within minutes. Fortunately, Adrian didn't mind as an older brother. He looked up at me with a gentle smile and said, "Go ahead, I'll be fine." Just as I was about to hurry upstairs, Adrian suddenly called me back. I turned to look at him. Adrian had both hands resting on his legs as he stared at me intently and said, "Ginny, don't imagine you'll get anything just because Nathan depends on you. Esther wasn't good enough for him, and you're even less so." The previous pleasant atmosphere instantly shattered, laying bare the cruel reality before me. How could I forget? Forget that Adrian looked down on me, thinking I was just after money. How could I think his smiling face meant he was a kind person? I shouldn't have told him about my dreams, shouldn't have said so much. If I had just stayed silent, this wouldn't have happened. I lowered my head, the smile instantly vanishing from my face. "I'm not hoping for anything," I explained, pushing Adrian back inside. Adrian glanced at my expressionless face and said, "Carry me to bed." Upstairs, Nathan's disruptive voice grew louder. Impatient at my delay, he called out, "We only read half of The Little Prince before bed last night. Come up and finish it. Adrian, give Ginny back to me." Nathan fumbled around and grabbed the lamp from his bedside table, banging it against the stair railings. "Could you wait a moment? I need to calm Nathan down first," I said, head down, avoiding Adrian's gaze. Though I had a good temper, being humiliated for no reason still angered me. I didn't want to carry him. My reluctance seemed to displease Adrian, who ignored his brother's commotion upstairs and said firmly, dropping his smile, "I said, carry me to bed. Now." "I'm checking on Nathan first," I defied Adrian for the first time and went upstairs. I regretted it as soon as I stepped on the stairs, feeling like a snake was watching my back. I tried to keep my spine straight but could still feel Adrian's cold stare. I hope he won't dock my pay. I felt anxious. I tried to reassure myself that I'd go down and carry him after calming Nathan. But no matter how much I tried to ease my mind, I could feel Adrian's gaze fixed intensely on me from the moment I went upstairs until I reached Nathan. After 5 months of work, I received a call from my father. He told me they had found a suitable kidney donor for Mom, but the donor was asking for £1 million. Including the £300,000 for the surgery, they needed £1,300,000 in total. The hospital fees could be paid later, but the donor made it clear they would only donate once the money was in hand. My father broke down crying on the other end of the line. "Ginny," he sobbed, "I asked Mr. Sinclair, and he agreed to lend us £300,000. I borrowed another £100,000 from other relatives, but we're still £600,000 short. Esther mentioned you're working as a carer for a wealthy family. Could you possibly ask them for help? Your mom can't wait much longer. Mom needs a kidney transplant, and Dad has tried everything." He wouldn't have asked me unless he was truly desperate. He must have borrowed from everyone he knows. Dad was clutching at straws. Didn't he realize that as just a carer, no one would want to lend me that kind of money? I held the phone, tears falling, but Dad kept insisting I should try asking them. I couldn't refuse him. I simply couldn't. I checked my bank balance. After working for the Rose for 5 months, I'd earned £300,000, but I was still £300,000 short. After making the call from the bathroom, I came out, carefully considering how to phrase my request. How should I ask? Would Adrian agree to advance my salary if I asked? Thinking about how meticulously I'd cared for them over the past fortnight, even enduring Adrian's harsh words and insults, all for Mom's medical expenses. Surely they would help me, seeing how dedicated and hardworking I've been? I still held on to a small hope that they might advance my salary. or I could continue caring for them indefinitely, anything to help me through this crisis. They would help me, wouldn't they? That day, I emerged from the bathroom with reddened eyes. I approached Adrian, stammering, "Could I possibly get an advance on my salary?" "My mom." Before I could finish, Adrian cut me off. Behind his wire-rimmed glasses, his eyes were cold. His usually gentle smile replaced by a sneer. His look seemed to say, "See, you've finally shown your true colors." It was all about money, wasn't it? "The contract clearly states monthly payments," Adrian said coldly. "There's no provision for advances. You'll only receive what you've earned." "Then could you, possibly lend me some money?" "My mom is ill, she needs a lot of money," I mumbled. Interesting excuse, more creative than the other women who've tried. "Must have been hard hiding your true intentions for 2 weeks," Adrian's smile grew crueler. Realizing Adrian wouldn't help, I held back tears and turned to Nathan, who had remained silent. I went to Nathan's side, taking his hand, my tears falling onto his skin. "So all your kindness these past days was just to ask for money?" Nathan angrily pulled his hand away. His eyebrows furrowed as he shouted at me. I wiped my tears and ultimately said nothing. As usual, I helped Adrian into bed and dried Nathan's hair. But none of us spoke a word to each other. I requested a month's leave. My grades were excellent, and while caring for them, I had managed to study, write papers, and even cultivate a small plot for experiments. The professor admired my work. I showed him a paper I'd written, and he said it was good enough for a postgraduate recommendation. I had planned to publish it, but I sold it instead. For a researcher, a paper is like a carefully polished gem. Finally perfect, but I couldn't keep it, had to sell it hastily. I got some money for it. Then, I went borrowing, begging everyone I could think of. Apart from Esther, I didn't have close friends, mostly just classmates. I, usually so quiet, repeatedly begged them to lend me money. But it wasn't enough. Still short, I finally went to the kidney donor. I knelt before them, kowtowing, offering my student ID and passport as collateral. I begged them to proceed with the surgery first, promising my future as guarantee that I would pay the remaining amount. I kowtowed countless times until my forehead went numb, my head feeling swollen as if filled with water. After verifying my university student status, they finally agreed. The surgery could proceed, but we were still a few £1,000s short for the hospital fees. I had no options left, absolutely none. In desperation, I dialed the number I'd seen on the public toilet wall. "Hello, do you need blood donors?" After dealing with my mother's affairs, it only took me a week. Then Nathan called me, his voice domineering and aggressive on the phone. "How much longer do you need to rest? My brother has agreed to let you get an advance on your salary. Come back quickly." On the other end of the line, he seemed to think he was offering me some grand reward, expecting my excitement and gratitude. I said, "I'll come back once I've finished handling my mother's affairs. With hundreds of thousands of pounds in family debt, I'd go back to earn some more money and then leave." As for their lack of help in my time of need, I wasn't devastated about it. I shouldn't have expected too much from them anyway. The relationship between Adrian, Nathan, and me wasn't even close enough to be called friendship. I was too naive before, opening up too much to people I barely knew. From now on, we'd just be strangers. Shortly after Nathan's call, I returned to the Rowe mansion. As soon as I entered, Adrian was there in his wheelchair. His eyes gentle, like an elegant gentleman waiting for a disobedient maid to return home. His magnetic voice carried a hint of languor. "I heard about your family situation. I'm sorry about my attitude that day. Do you still need money?" I shook my head. I decided not to say more than necessary, no point in getting too deep with casual acquaintances. Adrian seemed to notice my reluctance to talk. As I went to push his wheelchair, he gently patted my hand and asked again, "How did you end up solving the problem? If you borrowed money from someone else, you can take an advance on your salary to pay it back." His tone was sincere, appearing extremely considerate. His pale fingers tapping my hand as if we were quite close. Feeling uncomfortable, I gently shook off his hand and shook my head. Seeing me as silent as a stone, Adrian didn't seem angry. If it were Nathan, he would have been shouting and demanding to know why I wasn't talking. But Adrian just displayed an even more charming and gentle smile. "Why won't you speak, Ginny? Are you still upset with me?" "It's all my fault." His voice lowered, revealing a hint of self-reproach. Yet the hand I'd just shaken off returned to rest on mine. And I could feel the burning heat of his palm. "I'm not blaming you. I understand that helping me would have been a favor. And our relationship is purely professional. I shouldn't have asked in the first place," I said sincerely, hoping he would understand. "Purely professional." Adrian repeated these words, his eyes dark and unreadable behind his glasses. Sunlight streamed through the carved window, and his knuckles whitened as he gripped his book. Then he showed a polite, gentle smile and said in a persuasive tone, "That's wrong. Ginny and I aren't just employer and employee, we're friends. You've shared your dreams with me, Ginny, and you've always been kind and thoughtful. That's what friends do. What happened recently was just a misunderstanding. Misunderstandings between friends are normal. Now that it's cleared up, and I've apologized and made amends. Won't you stop being angry?" His thin lips curved upward, his eyes twinkling like stars, giving off a gentle and kind impression. He held my sleeve and shook it gently. Someone else might have felt at ease. But I knew his true nature and wouldn't be swayed by a few sweet words. How could we be friends? We barely knew each other. I'd just talked a bit more than usual before. While Adrian was holding my hand, Nathan, hearing my voice, had made his way down from the second floor. He shouted toward Adrian's direction, his voice excited and loud. "Ginny, you're back! I knew you would come back." He tried to come downstairs, but I stopped him and went up to help him instead. The moment my hand touched his arm, he pulled me into a bear hug, fitting me tightly against him. "Ginny, I missed you so much. Please don't be angry with me. That day, it was all because of what my brother said that I misunderstood you and yelled at you. Please don't be angry." Nathan pleaded in my ear. "I know that no matter what I do, Ginny won't get angry. Because Ginny will always stand by my side." My silence seemed to give him the wrong impression. His voice was so joyful and excited. "Look, my brother and I know we were wrong. We've prepared lots of things for your return. My brother said you like growing vegetables. So we built a greenhouse in the garden, just for you to grow vegetables." As he spoke, he stroked my face. Then his movements suddenly stopped. His voice seemed dazed. "Ginny, why aren't you smiling? What was there to smile about?" I didn't understand why Nathan was so happy. I wouldn't be using the greenhouse in the garden. My experiments needed control over every detail. I didn't even know what soil they'd used, what the nitrogen and organic matter content was, whether it was suitable for the vegetables I was researching, or what the room temperature was. How could I use it so carelessly? I'm not good with words, and I couldn't understand what Nathan was thinking. To avoid trouble, I gave a slight smile. After returning to the Rowe mansion, life seemed to return to normal. But all three of us knew something had changed. I couldn't quite put my finger on what had changed, as my mind was completely absorbed in research. My supervisor admired my talent and intelligence, allowing me to participate in a core project. However, Nathan was very concerned. After my numerous trips between the laboratory and the Rowe mansion, he hooked his pinky finger with mine and asked plaintively, "Ginny, why do you spend less and less time with me? You used to patiently read stories to me, dry my hair, and comfort me. But now you won't do these things unless I remind you." Because my mind was consumed by research. "You've become so quiet too." Nathan's voice was hoarse and tired, tinged with hurt. Like an injured dog, he sat on the carpet, wrapped his arms around my waist, and nuzzled his head against my shoulder. This made me uncomfortable. I squirmed a bit and pushed him away. But quickly remembering he was my employer, I made an excuse to slip away. "I'll go check if Adrian needs anything." "No, you won't. From now on, you'll only take care of me. I'll tell my brother to find someone else." When Nathan lost his temper, he became completely unreasonable. Nathan was determined about this. He suddenly stood up, ran out of the bedroom, grabbed a table lamp and smashed it downstairs, then shouted, "Adrian, from now on let Ginny look after me only. You can find someone else to take care of you." His attitude was domineering, seemingly convinced that his usually good-natured brother would agree to all his demands. I also went out, worried the lamp might hit Adrian. I was already planning to collect my final wages and leave. After all, who would pay me if Adrian got killed? Gripping the railing, I looked down to see Adrian looking up at us. His elegant face devoid of any smile, his thin lips pressed tightly together. He said, "No. I need Ginny more than you do." Adrian's gaze shifted to me. His words like a bomb dropped in water, creating instant ripples. Nathan immediately lost his temper, saying, "Adrian, I want Ginny. You've just got a bad leg that will heal soon. Why are you competing with me? You've always given in to me since we were little. Just give in like before. If you hadn't told Ginny I was only after her money back then, I wouldn't have been cruel to her, and she wouldn't be so cold to me now." Adrian's eyes never left me, not sparing Nathan a glance. Adrian usually wore white shirts at home, always crisp and unwrinkled. He had the new blanket I bought him draped over his legs. His eyes narrowed as he looked up at me. "Is that what you want too, Ginny? To only look after Nathan and let me find someone else? If I could only care for one person, I would definitely choose Nathan. He was easier to care for, being just blind, not requiring me to carry him around, which was quite exhausting. Plus, Nathan was more straightforward and easier to deal with." I tentatively asked, "Would my salary be halved then?" Adrian's grip on the blanket suddenly tightened, creating wave-like wrinkles in the fabric. His face maintained its polite smile, showing no loss of composure, though his spring-water eyes had darkened somewhat. Of course the salary would be reduced, from £60,000 to £10,000. "Don't worry, Ginny, I'll make up the difference." Nathan leaned close to my ear, his warm breath on my face as he wheedled like a child. "Nathan, as far as I know, you're still a child dependent on me. Perhaps you don't understand how hard I work. Why don't I freeze your bank cards and let you try being independent?" Adrian's voice was slightly hoarse. Nathan became angry, roughly hitting the railing in frustration. "Adrian, are you threatening me? Go ahead and cut me off if you dare. I can earn enough to support Ginny anywhere." "Let's see you try then," Adrian said coldly. I watched these two brothers, usually so close, now quarreling bitterly, and felt troubled. Wasn't this all rather pointless? I'm simple-natured and rather slow when it comes to emotions. But even I could see Nathan's possessiveness towards me. Did Nathan love me? In the past, I might have felt happy and flattered, because the prince of my dreams had finally chosen me. But now, I knew Nathan didn't really love me. I was just his second choice because Esther hadn't accepted him. He was too afraid of being hurt again. So he clung to me, using me as his lifeline, hoping I would forever be his emotional sanctuary, able to respond to his passionate affection. Isn't this what my senior colleague called the nice girl picking up the pieces? I fell into deep thought. Finally, I decided not to use my little brain to think about anything besides research, and planned to resign after working for one more month. Due to their argument, Nathan and Adrian hadn't spoken to each other for weeks, both maintaining cold expressions. The atmosphere was oppressive, and even I, usually slow to notice such things, felt uncomfortable. So I decided to resign. There's a lot going on at school. I need to quit. I'll stay to look after you for one more week at most, during which you'll need to find someone else quickly, I said gently, hoping to part on good terms, considering how well they had paid me. I told Esther about my resignation. She wasn't pleased and kept trying to convince me to stay, promising to put in a good word for me if I'd wait until she returned from her holiday. But I really couldn't stay anymore. As soon as I mentioned resigning, I sensed something was wrong. Nathan suddenly opened his usually closed eyes, his dark pupils fixed steadily on me. I stepped back, asking, "Nathan, why are your eyes open? Can you see now?" Then behind me, I heard a click. Adrian, who supposedly could only use a wheelchair due to his injured leg, had somehow managed to stand by the door and quietly lock it. "Adrian, your leg has healed too," I exclaimed in surprise. Then it struck me they'd been receiving treatment for months, so their recovery wasn't unusual. But why had they been pretending? This wasn't the time to ponder that question, though. The concerning part was that they'd locked the door after I mentioned resigning. I'd only heard of forced labor in illegal mining operations, not in private homes. Seeing my displeased expression, Adrian smiled softly and took a seat opposite me. "Ginny, don't be afraid. I just want you to look at the contract," he said. The fox-like man pulled out the contract and slid it across to me. On page 4, it states that resignation requires 6 months' notice, during which you must continue your duties, he said. "Ginny, you signed this, remember?" Adrian sat across from me, fingers interlaced, smiling as he watched my face turn pale. Shameless, absolutely shameless. I cursed at Adrian with the most venomous words I could think of. I hadn't read the contract carefully, never imagining they'd set such a trap. "Ginny, we're friends. How could I trick you? I just want you to stay a bit longer." I was trapped by Adrian. Out of spite, I stopped doing any work, but they wouldn't let me leave the mansion. Nathan kept watching me, and my tantrums were useless. I ended up using the greenhouse outside the garden, planting some laboratory seeds to pass the time. Nathan and Adrian no longer needed me to work. Nathan took charge of all meals. He would wear the blue doryman apron I used to wear, carefully following recipes while cooking. When I refused to eat in protest, Nathan would push me onto the sofa, pin my legs with his knee, grip my chin and ask, "Ginny, throwing tantrums isn't nice. If you won't eat, shall I feed you?" There was even a hint of anticipation in his eyes. Typical Nathan, still domineering and arrogant. He slowly leaned towards my face, his warm breath on my skin. Just as I was about to spit at him, an irritated voice interrupted. "Nathan!" Adrian, who had just returned home, called out to Nathan. Nathan came to his senses and awkwardly released me. Adrian walked to my side. He had brought me another gift today. That was his way, bringing me presents daily. I had to admit, he always chose things I liked. "Ginny, look, I got you all the issues of the Vegetables magazine. From the first publication until now. It took quite an effort, but I did it because I care about you." Adrian placed the magazines in front of me. I hated Adrian, but I couldn't take my eyes off them. I silently refused, yet my gaze remained fixed on the stack of magazines. Noticing my interest, Adrian opened one of them, speaking softly. "Mountain Tomato Rain Shelter Cultivation Techniques. I remember you like tomatoes, Ginny. Would you like to read it? Stay strong, don't let Adrian tempt you," I thought as I swallowed hard. My reaction amused Adrian, and he was about to tease me more, when Nathan suddenly grabbed the magazine from Adrian's hand and placed it in front of me. "Stop teasing her." Adrian rested his chin on his hand, his eyes gentle. "Ginny looks quite cute when she wants something but is too shy to ask." Nathan looked me over, then nodded. Indeed. These two nutcases. I thought as I opened the magazine, deciding to ignore them both. I thought they would never let me go. But just a few days later, when Nathan went to the hospital for a follow-up, Adrian called me to the garden. It was dusk, with orange and pale pink clouds stretching across the sky. Adrian's voice was as gentle and lazy as the twilight itself. "Ginny, Nathan was the one who insisted on keeping you here. As a caring older brother, I was forced to go along with it. Now that Nathan's at the hospital, I'll take you back to university. I'll transfer the rest of your wages to you. And you won't need to come to the row house anymore." I was somewhat surprised. Were they letting me go so easily? Adrian noticed my stunned expression and smiled softly, his fingers gently tucking a loose strand of hair behind my ear. "Don't blame Nathan for keeping you here. He just wanted to have you so desperately. He had no other way. When I was 10, our parents divorced. Nathan was only 5 then. They both started new families and left us in this old house. The day they left with their suitcases, Nathan cried and clung to their legs. I had to pry his fingers away one by one. I remained silent about their tragic past. We both fear loss. Nathan would do anything foolish because of that fear, but I won't. Because from the beginning, I told myself that if you don't try to possess something, you won't be afraid of losing it. Adrian's eyes were like clear pools as he smiled at me. But you're different. Somehow, you started affecting my emotions. Maybe it was when you tell me about your day and ask if I wanted tea or needed a cushion. Or when you brought me that little tomato you grew at university. For the first time, I wanted to possess something too. Adrian's confession was uniquely touching. Instead of directly saying he liked me, he recalled our memories together. Ginny, because I like you, I won't control you. Love isn't about possession. It's about making the other person happy. I know you want to return to university, so let me take you back. Adrian looked at me tenderly, perhaps hoping for a response. But I maintained my silence. He sighed softly, his beautiful brows furrowing slightly before quickly returning to his usual kind smile. Adrian kept his word and drove me back to university. The university was quite far from the row house. And by the time we arrived, darkness had fallen outside the car windows. Looking at the night through the window, I wasn't moved by Adrian's confession. I just felt troubled. After the car stopped, as I was about to get out near the university entrance, Adrian called out to me. In the darkness, his eyes seemed particularly bright as he said, "Ginny, I've arranged everything for your parents. I found your father a new job, so you won't need to please Esther anymore. I've also paid for your mother's medical bills. I know you love research. So I've invested £5 million in your supervisor's project to support your research. Would you consider accepting me now?" I paused, then shook my head. "Adrian, thank you for doing so much, but I don't like you. I probably won't ever like you. But I'll pay back the money once I succeed in my research," I said sincerely. He maintained his smile and asked me why. "My professor said we should communicate promptly when issues arise. So I decided to be clear this time." I gathered my courage and began recalling past events. "Adrian, do you remember the day I came asking you both for money? I had such high hopes that day. And I was even shameless enough to consider you friends. But reality showed me that we're from different worlds. You didn't help me, and you insulted and looked down on me. Adrian, since you can investigate everything, did you find out what I did to earn money? I begged, sold papers, even sold my blood. I won't accept you, I don't even want to be friends, because I'm afraid. Afraid that when I'm helpless again, you'll stand there looking down at me coldly, mocking me." My nose had begun to sting without me noticing. Adrian looked thunderstruck, his usually gentle mask crumbling. He reached out to comfort me as tears threatened to fall, but his hand stopped midair. I might be slow to understand things, but that doesn't mean I don't feel hurt. The scenes from that day keep replaying in my mind, though I try to suppress them. Because whenever I remember their mocking looks, my helpless desperation, the tears I held back while trying to please them, it all leaves a hole in my heart. I truly believed that after all those years of being thoughtful, they might care about me just a little bit. Even if they cared just a tiny bit, showed the smallest bit of kindness, I would have treasured it. But they didn't. So I never want their kindness again. It was the first time I saw Adrian without his gentle facade. He was usually so well-groomed and elegant. But now, he gripped the open car door tightly, looking at me with inconsolable pain in his eyes. Adrian wanted to say something, but for once, the usually eloquent man was speechless. I shouldered my bag, emphasized once more that I would repay the money, and left without looking back. After returning to the institute, my supervisor was quite displeased with my recent absence. After criticizing me, he mentioned Adrian's investment. He patted my shoulder and said, "You need to work hard on your experiments. Once our agricultural products are developed, we'll pay them back." I nodded, wiping away the tears from my eyes. You must always rely on yourself, never depend on others. The path of scientific research is always lonely. In the future, I'll face many obstacles and confusion due to my insufficient knowledge base. But I'm not afraid because this is the path I've chosen. I'll discard all external, useless thoughts and focus everything on my research journey. From now on, my soul belongs to vegetables. I began spending day and night in the mycelium cultivation room. At night, the small light in the cultivation room became my guiding star. Besides observing edible fungi and participating in my supervisor's core project, I also shuttled between the Institute's planting grounds, preparing my own research on high-efficiency cultivation technology for triple cropping peanuts. I thought I'd made myself clear to Adrian last time, but they still came to the Institute to find me. Adrian, that old fox, came to inspect our research progress in his capacity as an investor. My supervisor and I had to put on pleasant faces for him. Nathan stood behind his brother. When he saw me, he hesitated to approach but was stopped by Adrian's gesture. While my supervisor was enthusiastically introducing the e-commerce marketing of black fungus, Adrian lowered his voice and said to me, "Ginny, research is too exhausting. You've lost weight. What's it to you?" I retorted through gritted teeth. "I'm happy just to have you speak one word to me," Adrian smiled. To prevent his happiness, I decided to keep quiet and maintain silence. After the inspection, Adrian smiled at my supervisor and said, "I have a wayward brother who's also interested in vegetables. I'll add another £1 million to your funding if you let him intern at your institute. No need to give him core work, just let him do field work like hoeing and turning soil." Thinking about the institute's 10 acres of planting grounds, I fell into contemplation. What a good brother indeed. The supervisor naturally agreed with delight. Who would refuse someone willing to do hard labor while paying for it? Though he privately asked me if Adrian was just letting his younger brother experience life. Nathan stayed by my side since my research required frequent visits to the planting grounds. So I often saw Nathan at the planting grounds, wearing a white cotton shirt with rolled-up trousers. His tall, handsome figure, broad shoulders, and narrow waist, with exposed well-defined muscles, attracted female students from other departments who came specifically to see the handsome man. He ignored their pointing and whispering, silently working with his hoe. Only when I came would he somehow quietly move to my side, continuously turning the soil near me. While working, he would steal glances at me. When I squatted down to tend to the peanuts, he carefully said to me, "I'm sorry." Then, as if knowing he wasn't good with words, he didn't say anything more, afraid of losing even the chance to be near me. Nathan stayed at the Royal Agricultural Research Institute. Because of his quiet and hardworking nature, other senior students often asked for his help, forgetting he was that willful young master of the Rowe family. Rather than working in the fields outside, I felt he preferred staying in the laboratory, where he was particularly diligent. One night, when I returned to the lab to get something, I saw him crying in front of his laptop. I'd never seen Nathan cry before, not even when Esther abandoned him. The lab lights were off, and in the darkness, his laptop screen was the only source of light. Sitting before his laptop, watching something unknown to me, his shoulders slightly shook as he covered his mouth, letting out muffled sobs. Seemingly dissatisfied with his emotional state, he clenched his fist and struck his chest twice. But this only seemed to open some valve, as his pain visibly surged forth. A strong man of 6 feet, crying while hunched over in his chair, how pathetic. Perhaps the work was too tiring. Maybe I should tell the supervisor tomorrow to let him go home. My gaze turned to the laptop screen he was fixated on. With my good eyesight, I could see he was looking at my old Twitter account, where I used to write about my unrequited love. My heart suddenly tightened as I stared at the screen in surprise. Love is a painful thing. I love flowers, and even if they never bloom for me, I still hope they can flourish freely and brilliantly in the greenhouse. Today at the sports meet, my light got hurt. I wonder if he's in pain. I hope he gets better soon. Today, I finished his homework and cleaned his desk. Will he notice? It doesn't matter if he doesn't. Because love is something that doesn't ask for returns. Thinking about my sentimental tweets made me feel somewhat embarrassed. I never imagined Nathan would react this way upon seeing them. I thought if he knew, he would surely mock me with raised eyebrows. But now, he looked so hurt. After some thought, I decided not to take what I came for and carefully retreated from the lab. I won't disturb him, nor will I comfort him. I'm moving forward, and I won't dwell in memories. After my supervisor published a paper in Nature, I secured my position as the second author, which helped me get into the postgraduate program. Of course, this was just the beginning. The edible mushrooms that my supervisor and I developed were handed over to Adrian for sale. Adrian specifically created a brand company for agricultural products and invested money in building a factory. He eventually handed these responsibilities to Nathan. Nathan was no longer the temperamental and troublesome young man he used to be. He took these tasks very seriously, handling approvals, selecting locations, and connecting with clients. He was out there in all weather conditions. Nathan told me that he could finally be my support system, and that I could entrust him with the marketing and sales of any agricultural products I developed in the future. He would share the profits with me. I asked him, "Why are you doing all this?" Nathan said, "Do you remember when you read The Little Prince to me?" I remembered it clearly. When he still couldn't see, during those quiet afternoons when the breeze would lift the curtains, we would sit side by side on the carpet. I would hold the book while he sat quietly beside me, listening. It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. It is the time you have wasted for your rose that makes your rose so important. I remember when I read this passage. Nathan rolled over on the carpet, swinging his legs, and asked me, "You blow dry my hair, help me bathe, read to me, you've spent time on me. Am I your rose?" I remember telling Nathan very seriously, considering the value and development prospects of roses. "I don't think you measure up to one." Nathan had slapped the book repeatedly with his palm then. Now, Nathan stood before me, as straight as a pine tree. His gaze sharp, no longer like the puppy who used to whine and throw tantrums. He gave a bitter smile. "I was arrogant and willful. I enjoyed your care, constantly testing your affection for me. I gave you all my dramatics but never let you feel how much I liked you. But it's all right. From now on, I have endless time to make you feel it." Nathan flashed a brilliant smile and reached out his hand to me. I didn't take it, just gave him a quiet look. As I was about to turn away, Nathan suddenly called out to me. After seeming to hesitate, he said, "When Adrian let you go, it was meant to be a strategic retreat. He's always been good at planning and psychological warfare. That night when he came home, I was ready to have a big argument with him. But he'd had some drinks, and he told me." I could always sense that Adrian was much cleverer than Nathan. He was always good at gentle persuasion, setting traps for me to fall into. But after that day, he never set any more traps. He said you had tamed him. The afternoon wind suddenly blew strongly, scattering my fringe. I remembered why he had sent Nathan to approach me. Why he had Nathan handle the work with me. I angrily called Adrian, asking what he was trying to do, match me with Nathan? That would never happen. On the other end of the phone, Adrian's voice was elegant and gentle. He seemed to give a soft laugh. "You and Nathan have years of history together. He can take care of you more easily by your side. If I were to take care of you, you'd be on guard. I never expected you to accept either of us. I know your journey's destination isn't in love or marriage. But, Ginny, you can't stop me from waiting for you. I'll do all the work, and then wait for you right here. I may not be able to have you, but I can have the waiting." After hanging up, I looked out the window. Outside was a vast field of tulips, stretching as far as the eye could see to the horizon, seeming to paint the entire sky orange. I remembered the celebration party after our agricultural product launched, when my supervisor invited Adrian for dinner and drinks. In my memory, Adrian never drank, but that day, when my supervisor mentioned I had also published a paper in Nature, he drank quite a lot. When drunk, his cheeks were slightly flushed, his eyelashes lowered. My supervisor casually mentioned, "I heard our Ginny plans to research for season-blooming tulips next." Adrian immediately had people bring in many tulip bulbs. He gracefully shook hands with my supervisor, expressing his interest in and support for scientific research, hoping the supervisor would take good care of me. Throughout it all, he carefully controlled himself not to say a word to me. But I noticed his eyes carefully glancing at me, and whenever I looked his way, he quickly averted his gaze. Always composed, always calm and steady, always inscrutable. But when leaving, he couldn't help himself and said a few words to me. He said, "Ginny, you're doing well now, keep moving forward." He said, "Ginny, if you encounter any difficulties, consider reaching out to me. Even if you don't, I'll find ways to help you." And finally, he said, "I'm truly sorry. If only we had met under better circumstances."